Hi, folks. It's Dina Pack of EmbodyTheSacred.net. And for this Thanksgiving week, of course, I wanted to just talk a little bit about gratitude, some things that have been coming up for me. Maybe, it will be relatable for you. And also, taking leaps of faith and personal empowerment. So here's what's been going on for me in terms of gratitude. So almost 2 weeks ago now, though it seems like it was just yesterday, I had a really bad allergic reaction to hair color. So, I mean, I've been coloring my hair for 30 years and I've was prematurely gray. And I've always been very experimental. I've tried everything from like really natural organic colors like henna and things like that to like the more, just drugstore hair color. And maybe once or twice had a slight reaction to something, but nothing like, what happened a couple weeks ago. And this was a different brand I'd never tried before. And it was supposed to be more natural and organic, but it didn't like me. So, sometimes we just don't know how we're going to react to something. You could react to a food, you could react to a medication, you could react to, a substance, breathing in something, that was, somebody treated their yard or plants with, or just again, like the natural change of seasons. Some people are really allergic to mold and, and dust. So, we can be sensitive to anything, is my point. So I had this really awful reaction and I broke out in this horrific rash and, it was really itchy and my face blew up, my eyes swelled up, I could barely see out of my eyes. And it happened over the course of a couple of days. And I did, go to urgent care, thank goodness, and got regulated on proper doses of Benadryl and some steroids, which I don't like taking all that stuff. But hey, when you need it and it works for you, it was a blessing. And thank goodness it really, turned things around for me. But, seeing myself like that, with my head and neck like 3 times the normal size, all filled up with fluid and red and itchy and crazy, and my eyes, I could barely see. It really made me appreciate my face, which is not something that I've always appreciated, in my life. And like a lot of folks, especially women, have been very critical, of myself over the years. And I was really horribly bullied when I was younger because I didn't look like our society's version of, the conventional beauty, like, a Gwyneth Paltrow or something. So I always had a very large nose and, I was called ethnic and I was called, some, ethnic stereotypes and things like that. I mean, of course, nothing like what a person of color would go through, but, it's definitely critiquing my, unique appearance. And it took me a long time to make peace with my own, looks and, really learning to appreciate my own, style and sort of finding things that I like and how I look and, doing it for me rather than, what our society prefers. So anyway, it sort of just brought all that stuff up for me, with my face looking all crazy and like to just really appreciate, my looks and my ability to see out of my eyeballs and, have a healthy head of hair despite, everything that just happened. And, it's just again a reminder of those everyday things that we maybe don't appreciate or we're critical about ourselves. And then, we're faced with a big challenge and it kind of just brings it all full circle. So if you're interested in seeing the pictures, they're on my Facebook and Instagram pages, so you can find them there if you're so inclined. So that was, something pretty powerful that, came up for me over the last week or so. And also just like bringing to mind just all the various scenarios, a lot of folks have found themselves in and have shared with me, both clients and students over the past couple of years about how do we take a leap of faith? Like, how do we move forward on our path when we might feel trapped, in a certain situation or, like that it's never going to change or get better? How do we move forward with, really moving along the path of our soul's joy and mission, right? So, I mean, that can be a really long process for sure. It could take, years for us to figure all of that out. But really, and this comes from many, many years of working with clients, over 20 years, various, people from all different backgrounds, races, socioeconomic, many sharing pretty profound and difficult stories of challenge with me, from Vietnam veterans to, women of color who went through, really abusive relationships and had to pull themselves out, to, students of all different backgrounds, really um, having to really be the ones to make choices to improve their lives from substance abuse, or abusive relationships, all sorts of things. So what do you do? So, one of the things to look for is just like, what would you be doing, right? A lot of us are dependent on our paychecks and bringing in money and having to pay bills. Okay, so what would we do if we didn't have to worry about that? I know it's kind of pie in the sky, but like, what would you be doing, no matter what, like whether you got paid for it or not? Like, what brings you a lot of joy? So you can start like looking at those things, and how can you bring more of those things into your life, regardless of whether you're doing them, for a paycheck or not. Just like to get started and, spending more time doing the things that we love, right? And then other things we can look for, and this can help us too, is like, where can we be of service? Like, what gifts, talents, or skills do we naturally have, or that we've just been building and increasing, or just, we came into this world naturally with these gifts, that people seem to like often ask for our help in certain areas. Like, how can we take our joys, things that we love, and our gifts, talents, and skills, and maybe natural abilities, and where we can be of service? Like, what do people need, that we have to offer? And those concepts can start leading us in that direction, you know. And it's not something we need to do overnight, but if we find ourselves stuck and we're kind of staying stuck, whether it's a job or a toxic relationship, and we've stayed there for like the past 10 years and we're still complaining about the same things, that's not a very empowering place to be. And we have to look at like our own choices. And you might say, well, but X, Y, and Z, and I have bills, single mother. Yes, those are for sure big responsibilities. But we also, I've known people, single mothers, and having no support, no one to back them up, and they still chose to move forward and make the better choices for themselves. So we can, make a lot of excuses for ourselves. There's a whole bunch of excuses we can keep making, and they are valid ones, but at a certain point, we have to say, okay, but I'm choosing to stay. Okay, I'm making the choice. Yes, I have bills. Yes, I have a kid, pets, whatever, whoever I'm taking care of, but I'm also choosing to stay in this place. So once we realize that, okay, I have some say, we can feel some more of that empowerment. And so how can we start making steps in a better direction? And that might involve reaching out to, resources like, a women's center, or some other community opportunities. I've always found the biggest ways I've been able to make changes in the right direction in my life has not been in isolation. Like, I might make the decision in isolation, and at certain points, I'm the only one who can do it. Nobody can rescue me. I've had a couple of folks over the years say, well, but you're an only child, so you must be spoiled and your parents do all these things for you. I'm 55. And my parents grew up during the silent generation. So they were kind of like, figure this shit out yourself. They did what they could. And, but they were also very much of the mindset, like, you work hard and you want something, you have to work for it. And you need to figure this out yourself. We don't have all the answers. So, there was support there, but it was also like, a very much a mindset, especially coming from the Great Depression, that my parents grew up in, of, you got to figure this out. You've got to work hard. You've got to work your butt off. You've got to do what you need to do to, find your way. So we all have obstacles, challenges, ways that we grew up that maybe, helped us or didn't help us. But ultimately, we are the only ones who can take action to move ourselves forward. And so maybe part of that is figuring out, for ourselves, we're the only ones who can figure out, okay, I've got to make a change, I've got to move forward. But then looking to build community, creating support for ourselves. I've was a very, very shy child. I was very introverted, barely spoke, hardly had any friends for, many, many years. And I forced myself to break out of the shell. I got jobs where I had to talk to people all day long. I forced myself. I took a speech writing class so that I would learn to be able to speak and communicate with others. And I went from barely speaking and having no friends to having, wonderful friends for the past, many decades, and, large groups of colleagues that I love working with. And that took work. It did not get handed to me by my parents with their magic wands or some guardian angel, coming down and sprinkling fairy dust on my head. And, nor, many of my clients and students, we are the ones ultimately that have to take the steps to move ourselves forward. We don't have to do it all at once. You can take your time. But knowing that we have some say, we have some responsibility, right? One of the teachings that I've embraced over the years, and it's not an easy one, is the teachings of Ho'oponopono. So a lot of folks know about like the 4 phrases: I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But really, the foundational teaching of it is a forgiveness process, first of forgiving ourselves, for all our faults and foibles and mistakes, and those of our ancestors, right? Because we carry their karmic burdens with us. And also for our collective experience here, as human beings. So anytime we see something going on, Dr. Hugh Len, who is one of the foundational spiritual teachers of the system, Hawaiian healer and clinical psychologist, he was like, have you ever noticed that whenever there's a problem, you're always there? It's like, ooh, oh yeah. So, and he would say this process is about taking 100% responsibility for everything in your reality. And we could twist that and really use that to harm ourselves. So I please encourage you not to do that. It's not that, when you have been like a victim of a crime or something like that, or you have a horrible illness, that you blame yourself for it. No, it's just that as human beings, we have co-created this human experience together, and we're all collectively responsible for this human experience. So example, even though we might be sitting here on the East Coast in the US, as human beings, we're all collectively responsible for the war or wars going on, because we're all part of the human race. So we are contributing on some level to the consciousness that enables us to have wars, right? So it's more like that. So just kind of take a step back from that a little bit and say, okay, collectively, we're responsible for what, we experience, in our lives as human beings. So by working with the process of Ho'oponopono and using those 4 phrases, the I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, we acknowledge that some problems and some issues that we experienced, they're kind of beyond our ability to solve or figure out sometimes, right? We don't know the next step. We don't know what to do next, but we know, like, we want to surrender, right? And this is another way to surrender the problem to the divine and allow, the clearing of these, very intentional prayer-like phrases to help shift the energy. So maybe we get some clarity. Okay. So taking responsibility doesn't mean we're beating the crap out of ourselves for, difficult situations in life, but we're saying, okay, I want to be empowered. I want to make changes. I want to move forward, either in my own life, towards my soul's purpose, or to help, create a better way for in my society or for the human experience in general. Okay. So I hope this little sharing was helpful. I look forward to hearing any comments or questions, and you can always follow me on my Instagram, Dina Pacwa. My website is embodythesacred.net, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.